Marc Thiessen, fellow at American Enterprise Institute, Susan Friccio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Charles Lane, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Okay, Mark, game changer last night?
It was pretty bad for Joe Biden, no question. And the issue wasn't really his civil rights record. It was his inability to parry the attack from Kamala Harris, which he should have known was coming. It was completely predictable. Biden is out of touch with his party, but the reason why he's leading the pack is because he's perceived as the most electable candidate. But last night he didn't look very electable. He looked old, he looked tired, he looked unprepared. Now, can he recover from that? Well, yeah, there's 11 more debates, and it's 6 months to the Iowa caucuses. And if you think back to 1984, there was the famous first debate with Reagan and Walter Mondale, where Reagan looked very confused and not on top of the facts, and he was already president of the United States. And then the next debate, he came through with his famous line, I'm not going to take advantage of my opponent's youth and inexperience, and turn the whole thing around. So, Biden didn't have a line like that. He needs a line like that.
There were some lackluster lines from Joe Biden. Here is asked, what's the first thing you do, first thing in the Oval Office as president of the United States, here down the row?
Ending gun violence.
Climate change.
Passing a family bill of rights. Passing a middle class and working families tax cut.
We need a political revolution.
The first thing I would do is make sure that we defeat Donald Trump.
We've got to fix our democracy before it's too late. I would pass a $1,000 freedom dividend for every American adult.
I would do a collaborative approach to climate change.
My first call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand, and I will tell her girlfriend you were so on.
That last one was something. But the question was, what's the first thing you do as president? Joe Biden's answer was to defeat Donald Trump. Well, you're president. You've just done that.
I don't know whose answer was worse, his or Williamson's answer. Both were just ridiculous. I think this was a real wake-up call for Joe Biden. He's been atop the polls. He's got that foothold there for weeks, not just nationally, but in the key early voting states.
Put up the RCP average.
He's winning. He's winning. I think he went into this debate thinking status quo. I'm the dignified front runner. I'm going to take on Donald Trump, to the point where he says that's the first thing he's going to do. But this is a wake-up call for him. These people are scrapping to take him out, and he's going to have to do better.
Chuck.
Well, it's interesting how the level of debacle has grown over the last 24 hours worth of conversation, because I was following the discussions right after and on Twitter and everything, and the initial take was, well, he took a little bit of a jab from Kamala Harris, but he kind of responded okay, he should be fine, and now here we are talking about he's dead.
Not that he's dead, but he just had a really bad night.
He's 25 points ahead of Kamala Harris, and the main reason for that is electability, number one, and number two, support from African-American voters, who are a key block in the Democratic primary. And the reason Kamala Harris pulled that very effective fast one on Joe Biden last night is that she wants to break into that group. And in a funny way, it was a little bit indicative of her desperation that though she is a candidate of color herself, she hasn't been able to break through. Neither has the other black candidate in the race, Cory Booker. So I just want to inject a little note of caution. Biden was lackluster last night.
And the other thing is we're super early. I mean, listen, there were debates where Scott Walker was, going to be the guy.
President Giuliani.
And Tim Pawlenty and
yes,
all
Tim
that stuff.
Pawlenty, yeah.
All right, I want to talk about this immigration issue, and specifically the raise your hands issue on illegal immigrants getting health care insurance coverage. Last night, and then Democrats in the past.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay.
There are also those who claim that our reform efforts would ensure illegal immigrants. This, too, is false.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
It is something, Mark, to watch that you lie moment with Joe Wilson from South Carolina in the State of the Union address 2009 to the evolution of the raising of the hands. Vice President Biden was sitting behind President Obama at that State of the Union. And now he's raising his hand.
Yeah, Joe Wilson was ahead of his time. He's kind of been vindicated. I mean, the Democrat, if you watch that debate, the biggest loser in that debate, other than Joe Biden, was the American taxpayer. Because if you look through what they proposed, I just did a back-of-the-envelope calculation. Medicare for all, $32 trillion. Student loan forgiveness, $1.6 trillion. Free college, $840 billion. Federal jobs guarantee, $6.8 trillion. It goes on and on and on. And then you add to that the proposal, which everybody raised their hand and say, I support decriminalization of illegal immigrants, everybody except Senator Bennett. And I also support free health care for illegal immigrants. Open borders and socialism are a path to national suicide. And the Democratic Party is going to campaign on that going into 2020.
You saw by the way, it was an address to Congress, not a State of the Union address back in 2009. But you saw the president tweet right away about, everybody raising their hand. Our friend Ari Fleischer said this today in a tweet: if crossing the border illegally is no longer illegal, as several Ds advocate, why do we make people who get off airplanes go through customs? If it's fair to let people in without going through customs on the southern border, then everyone everywhere should be allowed in. Isn't this issue, Chuck, going to really frame the 2020 race when it comes to the Trump campaign?
Right now, Gallup is showing that 23% of the public generally say immigration is their most important issue. And that's the highest it's been in some time. So there's great focus in the public on this issue. And I am amazed. I was amazed last night and the night before at the way the Democratic Party, as your tape recording of Barack Obama shows, has zoomed to a new position to the left on this issue. I think they are taking a huge gamble by devoting so much of their airtime, their energy, their compassion to a group of people who, though undoubtedly sympathetic, are not American citizens, and therefore a lot of voters are going to say don't have the first claim on public resources. I think it is a huge political gamble.
Especially, Susan, when you're dealing with the VA that still has trouble for our veterans who've served to get health care, when you're talking about poor communities that some people don't have health care. I mean, it's really an issue that doesn't play well in many different states.
Well, the Democratic Party has come under tremendous pressure to move further to the left on this issue from groups over the years, from their base of voters and wanting to win over the Hispanic vote. This is all part of why they've shifted to the left. And the other reason is the nature of immigration has tremendously changed over the past few years. No longer is it just single males trying to get into the country. It's families, and it's because of the asylum laws. It's all started in 2014, and now here's what you hear Democrats saying: it's the children, the children, the children. We need to deal unaccompanied minors and children coming with families who are then separated. That has driven this debate to the left.
I will say that the Hispanic, Latino population is not monolithic on this issue especially.
Sure. And immigrants generally are actually some of the most hostile people to illegal immigration, because most of those people waited in line to get into the country and went through customs and went through the immigration process and followed the law. But keep in mind also that this is a force multiplier for all the spending that the Democrats have proposed, because if Medicare for all costs $32 trillion, that's for Americans. If you add in millions, if you turn the country into a magnet for illegal immigrants to come in for all the free stuff, they're going to want free college, they want to go to free child care, they're going to want all the free stuff as well.
And it's not factored into
all the costs of all those things are going to go up.
Very quickly, I just want to point out, we already fund a lot of those things for people who are undocumented through Medicaid and other local government programs. So it's not as if they aren't receiving health care at public expense.
On the books. Yeah. Next up, the Friday lightning round. We'll talk about the G20 plus winners and losers.